Appreciate it. Hey, congratulations to all you for being BizBuzzers. There's some really fuzzy businesses in here, really remarkable stories that people have done, from online retail to apps for your phone that we use. And then there's me, who works for a bank. And it's kind of hard to believe that a bank could be a BizBuzz speaker. And so when Mary Marshall asked me to do this, I said, well, it's kind of boring and historical. And she said, no, you need to talk about this. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. I appreciate the stool. I like to kind of be casual. I didn't wear a tie, especially for y'all. I'm a ninth generation Colbert County farmer from the east end of Colbert County, which at one point was Franklin County, which was at one point at the very beginning wasn't even a county. I'm a descendant of several families of Irish descent, Scottish descent through Ireland. Some of my family came during the potato famine and settled in Leeton. I have French. The Fennel family is French, what they call Huguenots, which were at odds with the king and settled in Colbert County eventually. They settled from Decatur through Mississippi, all through that valley, part of the valley. And then I'm a descendant of the Pruitt family, which I'm not exactly sure where they came from, but if you go back my lineage through the county, and being from Leeton, we have a joke in Leeton that we're related to all the white people and half the black people. And it's just kind of true. But we're proud of everything that we've done out there. And then when you're in a town where everybody's related, your family becomes very important. And it's mine. The Fennel family farmed for generations, still farming today. My family still farms Pruitt, my brother Pruitt, remarkably enough, Pruitt, get it? And actually manages this farm, and he and my brother Fennel, and my name's Mac, how do you get that, right? All three of us work at the bank. But the story about the bank is really not about banking, it's about farming. And how we started as a bank was, there was called the Valley State Bank. Valley State Bank in the mid-1940s was a statewide bank, and it had a limited number of branches that it could have. And one of those branches was in downtown Leeton. And as my mother tells us, one night, in the middle of the night, they up and moved the bank to Fort Payne. And that left Leeton without a bank. And so my grandfather, Leonard Pruitt, Pruitt's namesake, and some other farmers, Fennels, J.C. Fennel and other Fennel family, got together and formed the Bank of Leeton in 1947. And in my office, I have the first financial statement of the Bank of Leeton. And in 1947, in December, we were $1,100,000 with $300,000 in equity. The reason it was important at that time in Leeton, all of the farmers would come into town on Wednesday afternoon and on Saturday and conduct all of their business for the week. And so every farming family had a store. They had Pruitt Brothers and Fennel Brothers and Felton's and all those stores in Leeton, which are no longer there. And everybody would come into town, and there are pictures in the Leeton Library of Leeton being packed with people on Wednesday afternoon and on Saturdays. And when they would come to town, there was nowhere for them to put their money and exchange their money and do those sort of things. So the farmers got together and said, we need a bank, and they started the Bank of Leeton. And the Bank of Leeton started out very simply. I think everything was by ledger. Loans were on just probably 3-inch by 5.5-inch paper. You wrote out, Macke Mauldin owes the bank $300, and he'll pay you back by December 31st, 2016. And they had a vault, one of those rolling vaults that we could roll away and take out of the bank today, but we don't have those type vaults anymore. And they put the vault in the notes in a cigar box and kept them in the vault. And so they would just pull them out and had them organized by date to make sure everybody came in and paid their bill. And the bank rocked along for 20 years like that, or 15, 20 years. And then in 1959, my father, Edward Fennell Mauldin, came to be part of the bank. And he started January 1st, 1959. I was born in 1959. But Daddy became the chairman and CEO of the bank. And it rocked along for years, being the Bank of Leeton. And then in the late 60s, we wanted to move to Sheffield, because at that time, Sheffield was a vibrant, budding community and the hub of all economic activity in Colbert County. Leeton had kind of waned a little bit because of roads and transportation and post-war. And then Sheffield had become really the economic hub of Colbert County. And then, of course, at that time, banks could not cross county lines. They had put a moratorium on branching across county lines. So when we went to apply for a branch for Sheffield, the governor at the time, I think, was George Wallace, and he wanted a large political donation to his campaign for us to be able to get approval for a branch. So we changed our name from First Colbert Bank to First Colbert National Bank, and became a national bank. And in banking, that's your regulator. And we opened the branch in Sheffield in 1967. And in 1969, we opened Muscle Shoals, the Southgate Mall branch, which would move the economic activity from Sheffield to Muscle Shoals. And then in 1974, we opened what is now Tuscumbia, which is the same as it was the day we opened. It's really a great community. And rocked along for 30 years. My background is I went to Auburn to college, graduated in 1982. The 80s were a terrible economic time here. We were in the midst of 15-20% unemployment. The history of our economic engine in the Shoals was we were a farming community for 200 years. And then post World War II, we became probably the best blue-collar economic powerhouse in the South. We had Reynolds, we had Champion for a long time, we had Ford, we had Union Carbide, we had TVA, and if you had any inkling or ability or even fogged up a mirror, you had a very good job that paid you very well for the rest of your life. And then in the 80s, the economy changed, and we went through a lost decade for the Shoals area. So when I graduated from college in 1982, there was not an opportunity for me to come back home. So I went to work for a bank called First Atlanta, and worked there for 6 years in Atlanta. And First Atlanta is now Wells Fargo. Do y'all know? It was Wachovia, it was South Trust, it's Wells Fargo. So I came home in 1988, late 88, 89, got married in 89, and the bank was $100 million, right, $96 million. And we rocked along, and I guess the story is opportunities present themselves that you normally just don't make for yourself. You know, I hate to quote Nick Saban, but I will. Thank you. You know, luck goes to those who are well prepared. And that's not quite what he says, but you know, luck is lucky, and then luck is when you have an opportunity and you're prepared for it. Well, in the 90s, First National Bank of Florence sold out to SunTrust. And then with 18 months, we had doubled the size of the bank. We had gone from about a $150 million bank to a $300 million bank in about 18 months. And so that was a good thing for us. And then we rocked along for a long time, and we were looking to expand our markets and to take out our customer service philosophy, culture, and move into other markets to grow. And so we were looking at a branch of Colonial in Hartselle. And we had talked to Colonial about buying the bank, and they said, no, we don't ever sell. And I know Bobby Louder from Auburn days. And so one day we called up, Fennel called up and their CFO and said, hey, I'm standing outside of your bank in Hartselle. And there's nobody here, but we would like to buy it because we want to get here. And so she said, well, why don't you just buy all of our branches west of I-65? And so Fennel said, so then he calls me and said, Macke said, they said we could buy all their branches west of I-65, which is about $350 million worth of banks. And I said, and I quote, oh shit, what are we gonna do? And so we got together and planned and worked and came up with a plan on how to fund it, how to put it all together, how to provide the capital for the bank to make it work. And in November of 2005, we doubled the size of the bank from a $350 million bank to a $700 million bank overnight. And there were lots of really great things that happened. It is a generational, life-changing event for my family and for the bank. And there are a lot of issues that you can go into that we really messed up, but a lot of great things with all our great people and the people we inherited from Colonial helped us get through. And then we rocked along and did really well. And then we bought a bank in Lawrence County, the Citizens Bank of Lawrence County, $100 million bank, had plenty of liquidity. And then the economy went to hell in a handbasket. I mean, it went into the tank. And I hope none of you have to ever manage through that. I know some of us have. A lot of banks didn't survive. And so we were sitting around the table, the three of us, the 4 or 5 on the executive team, we're sitting around the room and we're going, okay, what are we going to do? How are we okay? Because, you know, we're looking, the Fed is calling you, say you take this TARP money, the state's saying take the TARP money. It looks pretty bad. We had just lost $3 million on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and we didn't know what was happening. You just didn't know what was going to happen next. And so the Fed encouraged us to take TARP money against our own wishes, and we took it. We've paid it off recently. Well, we paid it off a while back, and then we paid off that since then. So we were sitting there looking, and we had this opportunity to buy a business in Decatur called Interstate Billing. Interstate Billing was funding about $800 or $900 million of accounts receivable in 42 states across the nation. And we looked at it, and regions wanted out of the business. The economy was terrible. They wanted out of the business, and so we bought it for, we made money the first month. We paid for what we purchased it in the first month. And so we've grown that business from about 700 to 800 million to about $1.6 billion in receivables every month, every year. Every year we do about $150 million a month in receivable financing. And so I guess my story to you is that you never stop innovating. You know, I was blessed with a grandfather who had vision for banking. Banking at that time wasn't a sexy thing to do. It was a necessity. He filled a need that the community had for banking. And so that continues to be our philosophy today is Kennedy said, a rising tide lifts all boats. And the idea of that is that if we help make the economy stronger in the communities we're in, that we're going to be better too. And so we work in every community that we've got to make it stronger and more vibrant. We're more successful in some communities than others. Some communities don't want our help. Some communities need our help. Some communities, we're just part of the team to make it happen. And so that is a brief history of Bank Independent. And I'll answer any question you have.